Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Wyoming Executive Branch. You can see a couple of pictures of our elected officials and of course there's my niece's Flat Stanley that took on a trip around Wyoming for her. I'll go ahead and tell you up front, this is not the most exciting topic, and unlike past weeks, there's not some big theme that I can wrap it around. We're basically just going to list the major offices and their powers and talk briefly about who the people are that occupy those offices. And this may be the only lecture where I tell you this. You could actually just get the same information from the lecture slides. If you want to sit through the lecture, that's fine. But I'm not honestly sure how much value added there is from the video lecture. So if you'd rather just look at the lecture slides and sort of memorize the major powers, the red highlighted points, then this might be the only week where I'll tell you that would probably be okay. So in the Wyoming Executive Branch, there are 5 elected positions. This is different from the presidency in the National Executive Branch, where there's only one elected position, the President of the United States, and he appoints, with the advice and consent of the Senate, all of the other positions. In Wyoming, we have 5 elected positions, and the elections occur independently. So first of all is the governor, second is the Secretary of State, then the treasurer, we have an auditor, and we have a superintendent of public instruction. Again, the governor is elected separately from all of these. The governor does not have a formal role in appointing or influencing who will hold those different positions. And one very important aspect of this is that the governor has to share the executive power. The governor is appointed for 4-year terms, limited to 2 terms, meaning the governor can only run for re-election once. So the governor can serve a total of 8 years in office, but then has to step down. For all 5 of the positions, the people who hold the office tend to come from ranching, business, or law backgrounds. For instance, Governor Meade has a law degree from University of Wyoming, and this is pretty common for governor. The superintendent of public instruction tends to come from an education background, however. And importantly, women have held all 5 of these offices at some time throughout Wyoming history, and Wyoming was the first state in the Union to have women hold all 5 of the elected offices. Okay, so let's talk about the governor. The governor commands the National Guard, grants pardons, and vetoes legislation. The governor also manages any federal money. The governor is sometimes referred to as a chief lobbyist. The governor will sometimes go, for instance, to Washington, D.C. to try to lobby to get federal projects and money for the state. Any money that comes into the state, the governor is responsible for managing that. So those are the 4 main powers of the governor. There are others given to the governor in the Wyoming Constitution, but these are the 4 main ones that you'll want to know. Next up is the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State is responsible for supervising elections and also regulating corporations. In particular, the Secretary of State will charter or certify corporations. If a corporation wants to do business in the state of Wyoming, they have to get certified by the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State also manages the securities industry and in particular investigates any suspected fraud in the securities industry. Next up we have the auditor. The auditor oversees government finances, which means keeping records of spending and revenue. This is exactly what you would think an auditor would do. And of course, the auditor conducts audits for state agencies and mineral production on state land. So while the governor manages federal funds that come into the state, the auditor is responsible for ensuring that the money that the state spends and receives is done so in an ethical and efficient way. The 4th elected position is the treasurer. And again, just as the name suggests, the title suggests, the treasurer manages state money. Interestingly, part of this involves actually investing the state money in order to get a high but safe return on the investment. And the interest that comes from this investment yields higher revenue for the state. So the state actually brings in more money than it otherwise would through taxes by investing the money and getting a high but safe return on that investment. And finally, we have the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Once again, look at the title. It's fairly self-explanatory. The Superintendent of Public Instruction manages the public schools. She is responsible for setting standards and governing the operations of the school, and also for providing financial assistance to the schools. So, a short, quick little lecture about the Wyoming Executive Branch. Again, there's no overall point to make here. It's very important information to know what the duties and the powers of the state elected executive offices are, but that's about all we'll say about it. See you next time.